And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. Definitely in the mood for Christmas, but as we think about it, Christmas, well, the president yesterday warned us that COVID-19 still exists. And that's what we'll be talking about tonight on PM Express. Within the context of the vaccine that the West, the US in particular, Europe, and a few other countries are already pursuing quite aggressively, and vaccinations have started. The question really is, what about us in this part of the world? Africa first and Ghana. We've heard the WHO say that many African countries are not ready yet because it's not just about the vaccine, it's about storage, transportation, logistics that you need to get the vaccine into people through the vaccination. We'll talk about that today. I'm going to be going through what we know so far as that is concerned. We know that the vaccine has become one of the key things that the world is talking about. Every country is doing its utmost best to get it for its citizens. The president gave an indication yesterday of what he intends to happen locally for those of us who indeed will need it. Now, we know that it's been approved or have at least one trial phase completed as of December 18, 2020. The China, Russia, Germany, and the United States have been working quite hard in terms of getting the vaccine approved for its people. But we've been doing a bit more digging. So what do we know so far? This is road to COVID-19 vaccines development, right? Leading COVID-19 vaccine candidates, China. China already has 8 vaccines that are in trial. They read here, those that have been approved. In progress is those on that in green that you see there that China is working on. So countries that have the muscle, the financial wherewithal, are already working quite aggressively on trying to fix this. Russia has 2 vaccines, approved 2 already, that we know that they are working with for its citizens as well. Now, if you go to Germany, United States, they both are dealing with this very promising one that has now been approved by BioNTech Pfizer vaccine one that all these 2 countries are already putting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars in to get their citizens to be vaccinated with. United States, in spite of that one that they've approved that is going to go out, 4 of them are in progress currently, still being considered. The United States drug and agencies looking into that as well. Because listen, in as much as we want to get people vaccinated, there's also a bit of national pride involved in trying to be the country with also a vaccine for this. BioNTech, we know, is Pfizer and a German company that had come together to do it together. Now, so let's break this down. Other vaccines in progress. India, right, has 2 of them that they are working. Canada has 1. Germany, Japan, United States have 1 each. And the United Kingdom one is interesting. That's one that one of the reputable universities is working on there. And so this is a race. But we know this BioNTech Pfizer one is the one that has now gone out for people to use, approved for people to use. The president has yesterday, when the president was talking about the vaccine, was talking about this one, right? Assured Ghanaians of an effective and safe vaccine. We're going to be relying on this. We'll get the Deputy Health Minister to explain to us the precautions we're taking. He's put together a team of experts from relevant institutions and agencies to work towards the procurement and deployment of the vaccines in Ghana. We got an update today from the Ghana Health Service. Apparently, our timeline is around the first quarter of 2020. We'll get some more clarity on this, when we hope to get this. But do we even have the muscle to get what we need? The UK became the first country to begin vaccinating its citizens. The UK is in crisis, you know. Much of Europe is with COVID-19. Canada and the Bahrain have also green-lighted it as well. European Union Medicines Agency will meet, and this is key because this is the European Union. UK can do this because they are out of the European Union, and so they can go alone. But for the rest in Brexit, the rest in the European Union, I must say, they will meet on the 29th December and expected to approve this particular vaccine we talked about, the BioNTech Pfizer one. Africa hope to start mid-2021, but WHO warned that we may not be ready. Most African countries aren't ready for it. The vaccine, what does it do? It trains the immune system to fight coronavirus. How? Starts making part of the virus inside, right, the body, which the immune system then recognizes as foreign and starts to attack it. Now, we also know that the genetic material is then encased in a tiny protective bubble of fat to get it into the cells. Okay, this then becomes what begins to now get your immune system to fight back. The vaccine is given in 2 doses. This is where it gets complicated for Africa particularly. 3 weeks apart, and then offers up to 95% protection against COVID-19. 2 weeks apart. You have to do one, and then you wait 2 weeks and come back for the second one. Storage is key, right? People over 80s. In other countries that they have rolled this out, people in line to get it first. Those over 80s, workers in care homes, and health workers, including the vaccinators themselves, they get in line first to get the shots, right? I think this may be same for us. I'll get a deputy health minister to confirm for us what parameters are we working within for ourselves. Now, key question, could the vaccine have long-term effects? You need to know this because it's going to get here sometime, definitely. The data so far is assuring trials in as much as we know 43,000 people discovered no safety concerns in particular. So that is key. One of the most important things African countries must do is this education. Because we've seen even in cases of Ebola, people who were vaccinated were attacked because of ignorance. People think that the vaccines will kill you or is part of some grand conspiracy by the West. So all manner of conspiracy theories. So this, I'm going to focus a bit on this, education, right? So that when it arrives, people in villages and etc. who are vaccinating don't get attacked because of ignorance. Listen, they tried this. 43,000 people, no joke. No safety concerns. Mild side effects such as headaches, muscle aches have been reported. But listen, a lot of the drugs that you already take, they have these symptoms already. So no big deal there. We'll talk to the doctor, also a deputy health minister. He can break down a bit more for us. Now, what is the cost of the vaccine? And by the way, this is where it gets interesting for us as a continent. 2 doses of the vaccine are required for full protection. So that increases the cost, right? The cost will be between this is global estimate, $7 to $10 billion. The quantity, we'll try and explain how many we are getting for ourselves. BioNTech Pfizer vaccine given in 2 doses is expected to cost $19.50 a dose. $19.50 a dose. So you have to multiply this by how many we intend to get for our citizens. We are what? Almost 30 million people. Do we want to vaccinate all 30 million? Multiply this. This is almost $20 per person. And see where you are in terms of dollars that we'll have to churn out this country. Can we afford it? But there is some hope for us, poor countries like us. It's almost reliant on the global COVAX initiative. Now, we've dug into this a bit more. It aims to buy and re-deliver vaccines for world's poorest countries like Ghana. And 1 billion doses have been planned for the poorer 92 countries. The key question is, are we part of the 92 countries that COVAX is trying to cover? Now, 46 African countries can benefit from the COVAX initiative. Is our name in the list? I don't know yet. We didn't find this complete list, and so we don't want to put it out. But I want to ask the Deputy Minister whether we are part of the 46 African countries that can benefit from this initiative. The UN has appealed for 4.2 billion, right? In the next 2 months for COVAX. So that is a lot of money. I doubt if we can find this money. I mean, how much of it is Ghana going to pay? But we have peculiar challenges also on the continent because you have to store this at a precise temperature. That is key. Now, temperature is going to be one of our biggest enemies in taking delivery of the vaccine and using it and vaccinating it effectively. It needs to be kept at a temperature of about minus 70 degrees. This poses a big challenge for us. Do we have storage capacity to store this at minus 70? Because if you don't, it may become poisonous, right? This is very key. Do we have it? And are we getting the capacity? That is something that we will need to explore. Very important. Minus 70 degrees Celsius. Now, the ultra low temperature freezers require backup generators. Again, very key. Backup generators or backup power fuels. We know our situation with sometimes irregular power supply. But you need that. You need to use extra powerful freezers to keep it at minus 70. Big cities in Africa face regular power power failures, right? All across the continent, we have this particular challenge. Even in South Africa, it's a problem. Ghana has the same challenge as well, although we've been very stable for a long time. But listen, this is going to be a key issue for most African countries. Ghana, no exception there. Now, fear of the vaccination. This is very, very important. The debate of the COVID-19 trials in Africa, the French journalist scenario, right, has played out. People just fear vaccinations in Africa. There's all this ignorance and just all manner of theories that religious voodoo and whatever that can people make up in Africa to stop people from being vaccinated. And this tragic case of Ebola keeps coming up, where people who were doing their jobs to vaccinate people were killed and attacked in other countries, Sierra Leone, for example, because people feared vaccine. That's one of the biggest hurdles we have to cross. And I wonder what education has started on this particular matter. Now, we have assembled a team of experts, including the Deputy Health Minister, because this conversation we need to start now. You don't want to wait for the vaccines to come in before we start dealing with this. You need to prepare the ground for this to come in. The timelines are beginning to get some clarity. First quarter 2021, we've been told. When I return from the break, the Deputy Health Minister, a few virologists, renowned ones, will join me as well as we begin to break this down for you. This is the only way you can go about your life without caring much, right? So this is key. Stay with me. There's a lot to get through for you tonight, and so let me get straight to it. Dr. Bernard Okoboy is the Deputy Health Minister, joins us in the studio. Dr. John Amoisi, the leader of Global Health and Infectious Diseases Research Group, KCCR, and the lecturer, School of the Public Health, KNUST, also joins us tonight. Dr. Michael Owusu is a virologist, Department of the Medical Diagnostics, KNUST, and a researcher at the KCCR. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on PMS. This is such an important conversation for most people, including myself, because we've been looking forward to this vaccine. Doc, yesterday, the president gave us hope that a committee has been established and Ghana is pursuing aggressively to get our 10 in the queue to get a vaccine. What timelines are we looking at here? When do you hope the first badges will arrive?
Yeah, so good evening to you, Evans, and to all your viewers. Especially one to Dr. Amoisi. You know, that's my senior.
Oh, okay.
And I missed his call the last time, so we met on set. So we'll try and figure out what to do. Yeah, so basically, most countries, you know, now we've seen rollout of the vaccines deployment in Europe and some parts of North America. But in Africa, most countries are not going through bilateral arrangements. Bilateral means that dealing directly with the manufacturer. Most of us are going to go to the COVAX facility. And COVAX basically means COVID vaccines, how do you call it? COVID-19 vaccine access, global access. COVID-19 global, that's COVAX. It's a platform that was put together specially by by the UN and led by Gavi, which is Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization. What it does is to secure, to do pooled, procurement, so that you get better prices. And also it's going to share the risk across countries so that you don't have to pay initially from your accounts. So really the plan for that COVAX has, the platform has, is to make sure that low to medium income countries get 20% of their needs.
Okay.
20% of your needs.
Okay.
And this will come largely in the form of a grant. So even without funds from your country or whatever, once you sign on to the platform, you are going to have at least 20%.
Okay, so I said there are 46 or so African countries on the list. Are we on the list?
Yes, we are. Okay. We, in fact, to access this platform and to be eligible, you have to make an application. The deadline was 7th of December. And Ghana, the ministry through Ghana Health Service, put in our application before the deadline. Okay. So we are part of the country. So we are targeting, from the studies that we've done, the special committee the president talked about, we are targeting about 76% of our population. Okay. With those 16 years and above being key in this 76%. Below 16 years, the risk is significantly low. So 76%. So if you get 20% from the COVAX platform, then you have to find other arrangements to...
So like 55% more that we have to find to get to complement.
Exactly. But the good thing about the 20% that 20% of our population, if you take a population of 30 million, talk about 600,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and 600,000 vaccine is significant.
600,000?
Yes, for people. It's significant. Significant in the sense that you can cover the top 3 or 4 high-risk groups, which is your health workers, social workers who come into contact with a lot of people. I mean, and then thirdly, adults with comorbidities and all that. So it's a very good start or platform. And then also they have what this afternoon my boss, the Minister for Health, is part of the Gavi board. So he has quite some insight. And he was telling me they're also having these market shifting arrangements where outside the 20%, if you want to purchase, if you come through the COVAX or Gavi platform, they will make sure that they would have used the strength that they have to give you prices which would be way better than if you had gone straight to manufacturer. So I think as we speak, there are things in place. We have what we call NITAC, that's the National Immunization and Technical Advisory, how do you call it?
This is a Ghanaian body.
Exactly. They are supposed to look at deployment strategy, reception, and storage, deployment and all that, and to look at the issues raised, issues with cold chain, whether we have to get everything on our own or depend on what the manufacturer will give us or go into partnerships. And I was just telling, I mentioned it to you that look, if you look, and I'm not saying that's what will happen, but if you look at the vans that distribute the fanais, I mean, you can go into partnerships with people who already do cold chain business and all that. So really, as for once, we are preparing to receive vaccines at worst by first quarter next year. We should have had some. And once we are going to receive them, it is incumbent on us to find the cold chain. By the way, I think my colleagues would also admit that we already run cold chain systems in Ghana when it comes to vaccine deployment.
Okay.
We have vaccines as part of...
But this is peculiar with the temperatures minus 70.
I know, but once you have, you see, once you have some semblance of cold chain, it means that you are in a good position from the word go. Okay. But if the temperatures are very, like minus 70 for the Pfizer, minus 20 degrees Celsius for Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson, the Johnson candidate is yet to be. That's the one that I say it might be possible to handle it in room temperature. Okay. But my point is that if the temperatures are very low, what it means that your deployment must be quick, the turnaround time. It is those with very established, sophisticated cold chain that can afford to have vaccines in their custody for, let's say, a month. Because your cold chain strength wears with time if it's not very strong. So I'm happy that we are a country that does vaccination programs. We have the EPR, that's the expanded program on immunization. And some of our vaccines must go through a cold chain from the center all the way to the district. So we have some semblance of cold chain, just that maybe the committee will look at how to fortify those systems.
Okay, good. Stay with me. Let me go to Dr. Moisi. Dr. Moisi, are we ready? If not, what do we need to do to get ready?
No, thank you very much for having me, Evans, and greetings to the Honorable Okoboy. It's been a while since we talked, and it's nice to see you on TV, and also to my colleague, renowned virologist, Dr. Michael Owusu. I think we meet more on TV than we do in person. But and certainly to all your listeners, I think it's a really critical discussion that we're having this evening regarding the vaccine and whether we're ready or not. I think the Honorable the Deputy Minister has touched on a couple of very important points regarding our capacity to be able to access the vaccine. Certainly, Ghana is part of the COVAX, and this is exactly what he's talked about. But it's important for us to not necessarily put all our hopes in COVAX. And from what I know and understand, Ghana is going beyond just COVAX to explore other opportunities and alternatives. And this is definitely a wise thing to do for two reasons. One, because the COVAX facility will cover only 20% of our population. That's close to about 6 million or so people. This is definitely by no means enough for the entire country or for our needs. Another caveat there is we do not as yet know for how long vaccination will confer protection or immunity for that matter. And so we cannot tell how soon a repeat dose would be needed. But that's a caveat we will be able to answer that later. If it turns out that, you know, it's good for life or after a couple of years, then it's a bit easier. But the second thing, which is also very important, is the fact that when we go into COVAX, what that also means is we essentially lock ourselves into some kind of an agreement with Pfizer, BioNTech, and with Moderna to have to purchase from them, right? Now, this is the way the world functions. The companies need advanced market commitments. And so when they make these kinds of donations, it means that you are more or less locked in to purchase subsequently from them. The hope is that the pricing won't be out of range. And as the Honorable Deputy Minister mentioned, we're supposed to have some kind of preference for the pricing. But it's important, again, that we explore outside of the COVAX so that we have backup in case we are not willing or in a position to go with Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. If there are more efficacious options, cheaper options, there's the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik V, there's the Sinopharm vaccine from the Chinese. All these, so far, the data is showing that they're above 90% efficacious. There's also the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which is a little less effective, but in the grand scheme of things, by any measure, highly efficacious. So these are really important factors to consider. I would touch on a few other things as we move along, but just to say that we don't have to focus only on COVAX because we might end up shortchanging ourselves when better opportunities come along, or if the pricing or the market forces drive prices up and we are left with no other options. So definitely we should be looking outside of COVAX.
Good point. Let me get clarity. Which of the vaccines are we gunning for now?
Yeah, so the COVAX facility is not biased towards a particular vaccine. I think what COVAX is looking at is the terms. Of course, once before the vaccine is approved, it would have met the efficacy and the safety levels. But so they are not biased towards a particular type. In fact, COVAX is hoping to access 2 billion vaccines and deal with 2 billion citizens of the world. And they are not only looking at approved vaccines like that from Pfizer and BioNTech. They are actually looking at other ones. They refer to them as candidates. That's until they pass through. So they are looking at one from the Serum Institute of India. They are looking at other ones from Johnson & Johnson. They call it the Janssen candidate. I think they are also looking at one from, how do you call it? I just have the name. So they look at about 4 other candidates. And it is these capacity that they hope to add on to the ones that already have gone through the emergency approval process. So they are not biased towards one product. Theirs is a platform to make sure that they achieve 2 things: pooled procurement and equitable distribution. Very much interested in especially low to medium income countries. And it's important to state that the funds being put together are coming from some high income countries, coming from individual donors and organizations who believe that when it comes to vaccines, it should not be accessed only by the privileged.
Okay. Dr. Macaluso, so they raises a question about, and the president, I think, touched on it yesterday, Doc, that Ghana, yes, we are a poor country. We are relying on largely somebody's benevolence. But we know free things sometimes can be very expensive. And this is a vaccine. The president said Ghana will make sure that whatever we get is safe, right? I mean, you are a virologist. Talk to me about what we should be doing now to ensure that, yes, it comes as free, at least at the beginning, but it's also something that works for us, right? Because one minus 70 degrees Celsius for the BioNTech Pfizer one will pose a significant challenge in terms of storage, the cold chain, etc. Maybe that's not what will work for us. So how should government approach deciding what to receive? Or as they say, you are the beggar, you don't have a choice. So whatever COVAX gives us, we will take.
Yeah, let me just, emphasize
sorry, Dr. Amoisi, forgive me. I want to put that to Dr. Michael Owusu. I'll come back to you shortly. I want to hear him on this. Doc.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you, Doc.
Yeah, good evening to you, Evans, and my colleague, John Amoisi. Can you hear me, Evans?
Yes, I can.
He's a friend too.
Hello?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, and a good evening also to Dr. Okuboy as well. He's my senior also in the university some years back. And, yeah, so I agree with a lot of the points already made, and I think that I share greatly in what John said with regards to this vaccine. But just to add, Ghana has gone through some of these already, talking about deployment of malaria vaccines, which has been some of the things that we have done, in which we can step up and do things like, RNA vaccine deployment. And because this is RNA stream that we are dealing with, this is why temperature becomes very, very important. So RNA, since that if you use this to produce materials and vaccine, they are quite labile and easily susceptible, can easily get destroyed. So if you have these Pfizer vaccines generated at a temperature of -70 and you don't take care of it well, it is possible that these strains may disintegrate, and by the time you use it, it will be out of order. But you also know that Ghana as a country has what we call the sample transportation network systems, which I believe was implemented some 3-5 years ago by the Ghana Health Service and through the Public Health Division. And this has been used quite for some time to see how best laboratory samples can be transported under cold chain. So if you look at even the samples being collected for COVID, these are being transported through vaccine containers with ice packs. And we have disease surveillance officers working through the Ghana Health Service and the Public Health Division. And they seem to have some structure in place based on which we can ride on and then deploy this. But not to talk about it. The fact is that if you have -20 vaccines, it means that you may not need ice packs, but you may need dry ice deployed at all these areas. So the cost of dry ice and the ability for us as a country to use dry ice across all regions and carry this through is what we have not experienced that much. So there are still some gaps that we have to begin to look at as a country to see how best we can do this. And I think that once the structure is already laid, once we have a network in place, it should be possible for us to ride on this and then get this fully deployed to different parts of the country.
I mean, Dr. Moisi, to that same question about, now we are going to rely on the benevolence of COVAX and others. For now, that's all we have now. We're not going to be looking at resources to get ours, right? So they will be dictating, in essence, what they give us. But then also, we've heard doctors say that they are not looking at just one vaccine. They're looking at a variety of them. That poses its own challenges, does it not?
Right. No, I think you're spot on with that. And I just wanted to expand a bit on what I said regarding the current vaccines that we have. It's important to note that currently for COVAX, there are two options, which is the Pfizer-BioNTech and the Moderna vaccine. The Pfizer-BioNTech needs to be at -70. The Moderna one needs to be, I believe, at -20. The Pfizer is definitely more difficult to deal with because it's a much, much lower temperature. It's going to be a while before the others will be able to join the COVAX family. And if we're looking at getting vaccines in by the end of the first quarter, as has been announced, and I believe this will happen, then it means we will be looking at the Pfizer-BioNTech at the end of the first quarter. That is clear. There will be others that will come in through the system. But what I'm calling for, and I believe, actually I can tell you that there is discussion on this, is Ghana as a country approaching directly manufacturers, whether it be the Russians or the Chinese, or even the other one being manufactured by Johnson, and there's several candidates that are very promising, so that in the event that COVAX does not pull through to our desire, and take note, even at its best, COVAX is going to cover only 20% of our population. So by default, it is insufficient, all right? Second point I raised was the fact that with the COVAX, it means we will be locking ourselves into some kind of agreement for those vaccines that fall under COVAX. It's a very important point. It's usually part of the small print and the other things that we may not, really focus on. But I'm not saying, well, that's just the way the system works. It's not anybody trying to pull a fast one. But so it's important that we think about the remaining 80%. And that remaining 80% has to be juxtaposed against the probability of better options coming up outside of the COVAX facility, so that we're not locked into having to purchase just those two for now, and certainly the others that will come through the COVAX. I know Ghana has a history of being very astute when it comes to negotiations outside, also bilateral agreements with various countries and manufacturers. We have astute diplomats and people all over the world in international bodies who are leading some of these bodies and who provide advice at very high levels. And I believe that the country has already contacted some of these persons for advice and direction as to how to begin to approach for bilateral deals with companies. If you look at the UK, look at the US and other countries, they are gunning for these bilateral agreements and putting down money on the table, advanced market commitments for various options. It's a bit of a gamble, because you've got to hedge your bets. What if it doesn't go well with one or the other? But you've got to place your bets strategically, so that the ultimate hope is that you'll be a winner. So all I'm saying is, let's not be putting all our eggs in one basket. I don't think this is what we're doing. What I know is that we've already started looking outside of the COVAX facility. And very important to note that the COVAX facility does not necessarily, take us away from our structured system we have in Ghana, looking at efficacy, safety, and quality. And the FDA will be doing this. The COVAX vaccines will go through our FDA process. They'll be evaluated on their merit based on the available data. Of course, we're not going to just rubber stamp it and say, oh, US FDA says it's good to go, EMEA in Europe says it's good to go, the UK regulatory authority says it's good to go, so we also just fine. Of course, the vaccines, that's the Pfizer and then the Moderna, have been shown to be efficacious, safe, and of high quality across all age groups, also across all ethnicities, and there seems to be no variation based on some of the factors we may be concerned with. But we need to bear in mind that only in South Africa, South Africa is the only African country that was included in some of these vaccine trials. Kenya is also on the starting block, waiting to participate in these. Of course, South Africa is involved in the other, the Johnson Johnson. I think it's called the Evaluate trial. So there's a bunch of variables we need to consider in all this. But just to know that we will go through our stringent process.
I want to comment on that. The very important structures that before we are getting it for free. And a COVAX doesn't mean that. What are choices?
I think in doing transactions, it's always a matter of risk management. Whenever look, some of these companies, they were even supported by some of the countries like the US, even in the vaccine development.
True.
So really, they have some agreements or some benefits for the investments they've made. Now, you don't want to go into such transactions independent, like a loan. So you want to go through platforms where the pooled muscle helps you to get better offers. And it's not only the offer, because you have a lot of countries coming together, they also make sure that the risk is shared across board. I mean, if it's 10 countries, all will be interested in making sure that the right efficacy, safety, and all things are on board. Look, we have said we are tackling 76% of our population. From the web.
So that's how many people? That's
76. I mean,
so we are 30 million, and so we are doing almost what, 20?
Yeah, more than, let's say you put out 21 or 22 million.
Yeah.
Now,
so we are not vaccinating all 30 million people.
Of course, I mean, most of the time, the very low risk groups, because vaccination is meant two things. Ultimately, you want to do eradication, which is globally there will be zero incidence, no case. If you succeed at zero incidence in your region, then you've eliminated. That's the difference between elimination and eradication. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. So for Ghana, I want to eliminate. But you can also use vaccination to significantly slow down rate of mortality and hospitalization. That's when the risk groups are taken care of. So once we have targeted 76% as a nation, government target 76, you should know from the word go that we are not only depending on COVAX. COVAX will give you maximum 20%. But would take advantage of arrangements that have been made by COVAX with the manufacturers. Advantage meaning that if you go to a particular platform, then there is the market shifting effect. You will not procure at bilateral prices, but you procure. So it's just about the advantages. And, you know, we are going to experience some of these advantages because vaccine procurement and deployment have been in the system for long through Gavi. So really, those arrangements do exist. And if you are aware, as a country, if you run EPIs, you know that it is always smarter to go through those routes so that you get good prices. And by the way, I'm happy that Dr. Amoisi reminded us. The fact that a product has been certified and validated in other jurisdictions doesn't mean when it comes to our jurisdiction, we just deploy it. So as we speak, when it comes, all the claims made by the manufacturer must be vetted and validated by Ghana's FDA. Food and Drug, it's not negotiable. That is the process. So even with all the testing kits that came with COVID-19, some of the medications we are using, every input has passed through FDA before being allowed to use. So I think that also should give some comfort to the population that we are not going for vaccines and coming to them, give it to Ghanaians because they say it's safe and efficacious. Do we have the money? You know, there are two things. To validate a claim and to test the procedures is not the same as having the capacity to develop the vaccine from laboratory stage 1 to stage 5. That one, the capacity ought to be built over a certain period of time. Validating the claims, when we say claims, what, like they say, 95%. You don't need the same capacity.
Side effects, etc., etc.
Exactly. Those ones are ones that can be done. And when you are trying to look at the efficacy and all that, you don't start from ground zero. It's a different process.
I'm actually even asking for, because we are also going to look at our own arrangement to get to the 75% of the population, we are going to be spending our own money then. Do we have the money as a country, as a poor country like us, to do this?
I think, well...
But that's going to cost a lot.
Given the World Bank facility that we approved in Parliament recently, I wouldn't, just to be on the side of caution, I wouldn't like to mention the amount. But even with that facility, as we speak, Ghana as a government already made some allocation in that
for vaccine procurement.
Absolutely. Okay. So really, it's not like we are on ground zero. We've actually forecast, we did forecast that we will need to have some facility. And we didn't forecast for only the procurement of the vaccines. We actually forecasted also for deployment and the logistics that will be needed. I remember that one I can comfortably say about $8.5 million from the...
$8.5 million for the deployment.
Absolutely.
So this is the storage,
Exactly. And that is why it was on the basis of such allocations and such arrangements that the president said that we are actually putting ourselves in order towards the deployment, which we are hoping to happen in the first quarter of 2021. Now, beyond all this, I think the good thing is that vaccines are treated as, there are certain products or resources that the world treats as essential, and that its non-availability in another jurisdiction can actually impact negatively on those who can afford. And that's what gives me comfort. So when it comes to vaccines, the world has a way of coming together to make sure that finance doesn't become the barrier. Because if you vaccinate, let's say 60-70% of the North American population, and you have Africa or Ghana being 10% covered, what happens is that they still are at risk. When anybody from Ghana enters their population, they can go back to ground zero. And that is, I'll not say the good thing, but that is the refreshing thing about vaccination. The problems of one becomes the problems of all. And that's why we are...
I mean, Dr. Michael, so talk to me about assuming, and we are hopeful, that this first quarter target will be met. If that is met, how should the distribution be done? I've heard government officials say that a certain segment of the population will get it first, right? Aged, etc. But for you, what is the ideal thing to do, and what preparation should we start now in getting those people and identifying them in a country where, registering people's identities is difficult? What is the best practice? Who gets it first? And how should they be prepared to get it? And identifying them.
Evan, so there is a lot that still has to be done. I'm sure maybe the Deputy Minister will raise this for us to also understand that WHO made a publication on the 6th of November that they did an assessment in a lot of countries, Africa, developing countries, where they found out that, the benchmark that they normally set is around 80% for countries to look at how best they will be able to deploy the vaccine. They look at 10 key things. The first is planning and coordination. The second is resources and funding. The third is vaccine regulation. The fourth is service delivery. The third is training and supervision. They have monitoring and evaluation, vaccine logistics, vaccine safety and surveillance, and then community and community engagement. And across Africa, the average that we scored is 33%, but the expectation is about 80% before this vaccine can be fully deployed to these countries. So a lot still has to be done. And if you don't achieve this target, it will be difficult for any African country to fully have the capacity to deploy this particular unique vaccine. So these are things that I think from now until perhaps first quarter of next year, we still have that flexibility to begin to plan. You were talking about which population should receive this. This is something that we need to work out. I think the Deputy Minister has mentioned that perhaps health workers could be the first targets. You may also want to look at elderly people who are more at risk of becoming infected and therefore dying. And then perhaps some other peculiar groups that we have to deal with. But also, you also have to understand that even in the emergency authorization approval granted by FDA, there are still some gaps and there are still some information that we still don't understand. For instance, how will the vaccine perform in pregnant women? We still don't know much about it. And what about lactating mothers? If you breastfeed your child and you are vaccinated, how will the child respond? We also don't know immunocompromised subjects. If somebody is HIV and he takes the vaccine, is he going to mount immunity against this? So we still don't have adequate information. And this is why countries are supposed to weigh the 10 key areas that were assessed by the WHO and to see their ability and capacity to at least beat up to 80% of the target. Then they can be, very much ready to be able to deploy this.
Okay.
So I think that, this conversation is quite important. And once we are discussing this, you raise the awareness. And I'm quite happy and excited that the president has made this as a focus, which means that the country is committed to begin to put together experts to understand how to deal with this. And then I hope maybe by first quarter of next year, or maybe middle of next year, we should be well prepared and be able to at least get this across different parts of the country. Who to give it to is part of the plan for us to understand which people should receive.
You raise a very important point. I want to take a quick break. I want to return. We don't have to do this again because for me, the last point you raise in the WHO's criteria is the community engagement. We've seen in Africa, if you take that last bit for granted, you were kidding. The vaccines may arrive and you go to community, they'll chase you out because of just, I keep referring to this. I have a friend who was lynched, nearly killed, in Sierra Leone because they were distributing vaccines. So for what's the name of the thing that killed us a lot? The Ebola. So when I come, I'll talk about our preparedness. Where are we? Because first quarter is 4 months away, Dr. Koboy, and so we don't have time. And a lot of the things that Dr. Mwesi and I've just elaborated, Dr. Makawusu, we need to start preparing. Where are we with that preparation to receive first quarter? And then I'll spend some time, get Dr. Mwesi and Dr. Makawusu to quickly tell us the community engagement. What should people know? What should people know now to disabuse your minds of any spiritual, whatever it is that may come up? People need to be educated. We'll do a bit of that before we end also. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. So we have 5 minutes to wrap up, but I want to spend that time doing quick education But I asked Dr. Kobo a quick question. Doc, so we heard Dr. Michael Wusu say, let's the WHO assessment criteria for readiness. I mean, WHO said Africa 35% marks. Where Ghana specific, where are we? What percentage have we scored?
So like I said, because we have an expanded program on immunization, which is the one we've been running for all our childhood diseases, really we have institutions and entities that do these, our monitoring, vaccines, adverse effects and all that. What we've done is that apart from the NITAC, which is the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, which has been specifically formed to look at procurement, deployment and all some of the processes that my colleague talked about. We also have had subcommittees put in place through the Ghana Health Service and Ministry of Health. So actually I have activities and timelines. You know, so when this one came from my policy, one of my policy directors, you know, they had series of meetings they had NITAC meetings on 30th of November, 3rd and 9th. There was a completion of the request form I talked about on the 4th of December. And then there was endorsement by MOH. Submission to Gavi was on the 4th of December. And then there was a response from Gavi on the 9th. So the point I'm making is that meetings have already started, all in preparation for all this. And remember, some of the things he talked about even come post-vaccination, like the monitoring, adverse effects, the safety, community engagement and all that. So the point is that these are processes that will be captured by the group that is the NITAC group and the subcommittees that we formed. And because, like you just also intimated, because we don't have a lot of time, what we have to do is to make sure that we have a lot of ticks, at least 8 out of 10 ticks, before we complete.
1 minute, I want to go back to and find out, but give me 1 minute of this dealing with misconceptions about vaccination, particularly about coronavirus, which everybody has heard of already. And that comes to the community engagement, right? I don't have enough time, but I'm going to set up a day, another day we'll have this full thing. But your best few words on that before this happens.
As a physician, as someone who does health education, and as someone who really cares about fellow human beings, I would say confidently that if a vaccine is developed not in one corner of the world, when I say one corner, by one country, maybe if it's only one country, they might be making claims that are not. But when you have vaccines developed across the globe, it is very, very important to accept it. I mean, when I say accept, once it's gone through our approvals and it arrives, I would go for it. We have saved so many lives, in fact, millions of lives through vaccination. And by the way, smallpox is a condition that has been eradicated from the world. It was achieved through vaccination.
Polio.
In fact, polio, we are almost there. Sometimes you get reported, and the cases are reported at places where you have myths and all kinds of superstition about vaccination. Hepatitis is one of the biggest killers for adults in Africa. Kids born, I think, about 15 years ago, it will be difficult to find hepatitis in them when they get to 20 or 30 because our EPI also has hepatitis B vaccination. So my point is very simple. The only one intervention that can protect and preserve life for many years, and Dr. Moesi would admit, the single intervention is vaccination. So we have to find out, and what I have suggested is that quickly, and the researchers can help, we should go out there quickly and find out whether people will be, through a research, quick survey, whether they will take the vaccine or not. And our interest should be why they wouldn't take it.
US did that. They found a few things that informed there.
Absolutely.
Dr. Moesi, quick final words on this very important part of the process towards dispatching and vaccinating people. Very briefly, I don't have much time, but what would you say on this?
Some more time a bit later to look at this, but I'll just raise a couple of points. One is the major concern that people have is that this vaccine will end up modifying their DNA. This is completely false. It's what we call an mRNA vaccine, and Dr. Wusu can speak more to this. It's actually a small part of the virus that is used to make the vaccine. So the argument is that if the virus itself could not modify your DNA, then the vaccine cannot modify your DNA. Another point that people raise of concern is the verification of vaccination. And all this talk about the COVID passport and it being biometric and it going to be used to track and trace you. The fact is that, one, we're already having yellow fever cards, which essentially everybody needs to travel. Those are not biometric, but this vaccine is expensive. It needs to be rationed. The right people need to get it. You want to avoid hoarding, people getting double doses. So definitely you want to confirm that the person X received a certain vaccine. The only way you can do that is by making sure it's linked biometrically. We're doing biometric registration for our voting, for crying out loud. So what is the problem with biometric verification for a vaccine and this whole idea of us being tracked and traced? Another thing is also, and this may be on the lighter side, think about this, the company that made Viagra, so somebody put it this way, this company was able to manufacture something that, quote unquote, raises the dead. So why not trust it to cure the living? That's on the lighter side.
Good one. Now what I'm going to do is this week, Wednesday most possibly, I need to do one more show simply on the COVID-19 vaccination or the vaccine, busting the myths. So we can take each fear and deal with it decisively. You'll join me? Because I think this is key. All of you, Dr. Moisi, Dr. Makalosu, don't worry, you come back, let's have that conversation and let's bust these myths around this so we can get our people vaccinated. First quarter is just 4 months away. We owe it a duty to the millions of people who may have possibly died because of vaccine. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
And I'll have you again and enjoy the rest of the evening.